I went golfing this morning. I don't know. I'm who am I? I have no idea. I've been trying to keep myself busy as much as possible. Like I've picked up running, cooking. I got a garden. I smoke a lot of weed. I don't drink as much beer, and life is good.
What is a hidden talent most people don't know you have?
Or I play hockey, and I'm actually pretty good at it. So I played hockey when I was a kid. I got to high school, and then I got too competitive, and that's when I really started focusing on music. Also, I was a barber. I had my own barbershop in East Dallas. It was like right before Vandoliers started. My punk band like never made money, so I always had to have a regular job. When I moved to Dallas, it was like right after I got out of my apprenticeship and started working at a corporate place. You know, picked up clients. I wasn't bad at it, and I just got fortunate enough where I could start my own suite and did that until we started touring too much, and then I had to kind of, just like hockey into the band, I kind of had to let Barbary and the band thing kind of trade places.
What about on the road? Do you still give haircuts?
I did in my punk band, and then the kind of touring that Vandoliers does, I'm too tired. Like, we just play every night. I don't know. And then there's like kind of that viewpoint of like, well, that was my job. Now Vandoliers is my job. So when I go out on the road, it's like I'm working. Or at least that's how I justify being in a band. Like, this is my job, right? Yeah! We pay taxes.
What do you collect?
I love comic books, cassette tapes, Batman the Animated Series action figures, and vinyl posters, stuff like that.
All right, let's go comic books here. What's your thing?
My childhood nostalgia, Spider-Man and Green Lantern, like deep down, like comic book dudes, Batman. Like I love detective stuff. I'm getting into that age where I'm trying to rebuy my childhood, you know? So like I'll buy stuff here. Let me grab it. Like action figure I had when I was a kid, comic book I had when I was a kid. I went and rebought them because I lost them or destroyed them because I was a kid. So, you know, I'm about to have a kid, and this is the first time that I've gotten to talk about that. So awesome. So I have a bunch of toys and boxes that I have no problem opening up. I'm not like obsessive about it. It's just kind of as I got older, I just, I was like, oh man, I'm still a nerd. So I kind of miss that stuff.
I think it's so funny. You also mentioned cassette tapes. Like that somehow made this comeback.
I got a 1999 diesel V-dub with a tape deck in it and no CD player. And so I started getting into cassettes, and I was like, fuck, I can buy this stuff for like 25 cents at half price, which is do y'all have half price books out there? It's still Southern. Anyway, that's like a resale shop. That's like a Goodwill for books. And they had like cassette tapes by the piles for like 25 cents. Couldn't even give them away. And so I'm just like, this is what I listen to in my car. And you can find all great country stuff. Like one Dwight Yoakam tape just did not leave that car the entire time. Those are really fun. It was cheap music. So I got into it. I have one when we went out on the road with Marty Stewart. I brought my cassette tape of Hillbilly Rock, and he signed it. And that was awesome. So that's my favorite cassette tape that I have. I like punk rock and country when I'm like with cassette tapes. Those are the things I'm looking for. So like if it's a 90s pop punk record on cassette, I want it. If it's 90s country or 80s country or, like on cassette, I want that. The 90s tapes take me straight back to my childhood where like I'm hanging out in a bar where my parents are doing, Friends in Low Places after a softball game. That kind of stuff.
Let's talk about punk and country, because I think this is so interesting. You come from a punk and country background, like a guy like Joshua Ray Walker, punk and country. John Moreland used to be punk, and now he's kind of country. What's happening here?
Being a white dude, I don't know. You just grow up. I think like punk music is for kids. Like, if you are still playing punk music as an adult, it's because when you were a kid, you made a shitload of money. Like, you did it. Like, if you're in Less Than Jake or, like, Anti-Flag, like, fuck it. You are 19 for the rest of your life. With punk music, writing lyrics, you feel like what you have to say matters. And then when you write country music, it's the same viewpoint, but it's just from a different area. Like the punk rock thing is like, I want to get out there and live my life. Fuck you. And then like the country side of it is like, oh man, I live my life. Don't do this. You know? I don't think it's too complicated is really all I'm saying. We all went to school with cowboys in Texas. We all went to school with punks in Texas. We lived in the same fucking place. We listened to the same music. We went to the same parties. We hung out with the same people. It was only time before, like, 2 ships in the night, we would trade places. And that was another thing with Vando. Like, I never wanted to fake anything. We're the last band to ever be like, oh man, we're a real deal country. It's like, no, we're just from Texas, and this is what Texas music sounds like, a little faster. And like, that's it.
What is the worst or weirdest job you've ever had?
Okay, I had 2 really shitty jobs back to back. And that's what made me go to barber school in the first place. I did door-to-door sales in downtown Dallas in like 2008. So I was right out of high school, and like the recession just hit. So Dallas was rough. And the last thing they wanted to spend their money on was mobile internet that they could get on their phone. It's awful. Just the most like psychologically damaging job you could ever have. And it was a winter, and I went through an entire blizzard selling door to door. It's my grandpa's story. I'm like, I walked 10 miles selling mobile internet. And then after that summer in 2009, which was one of the hottest summers in Texas ever, I decided to work in attic insulation, which is when you go into an attic and add insulation to it to keep the house cooler. But what you're doing is you're making the attic actually hotter. So it would get to like, I don't know, 124, 150. You're just baking yourself in there. You'd spray like silver paint on the ceiling, so you're covered in silver, and then you're putting in the foam insulation, so you're completely scratched up, and it's 200 degrees, and then you fall through a ceiling. And that's why I quit that job. Do that at 6 a.m. and hungover.
Well, all right, glass half full, you were sweating it out of you.
Amen. I was still drunk.